8 years ago, my life veered off course in the most devastating way. It was the night my husband, Tom, discovered I was having an affair with my boss, David. It wasn't an accidental discovery. Tom had grown suspicious over time. The late nights at the office, sudden business trips, the growing distance between us, that all added up. But nothing could have prepared me for the expression on his face when he confronted me. That look of heartbreak, anger, and disbelief still haunts me. The affair wasn't some passionate, long-standing romance. It was a string of reckless decisions I made during a rough patch in our marriage. I had been working at the company for 5 years. David was charming, successful, and seemed to understand the frustrations I was feeling at home in a way Tom didn't. What started as harmless conversations turned into flirtation, then into something far more dangerous. Deep down, I knew it was wrong, but I was drawn to the thrill of secrecy, convincing myself it was somehow justified. I was so wrong. That night, Tom found emails. Explicit ones. The kind you couldn't deny or explain away. I didn't try to lie. There was no point. The betrayal was spelled out in black and white, and Tom was shattered. He stormed out of the house that night and didn't come back for 2 days. Those were the longest 2 days of my life, filled with panic, guilt, and dread. When he returned, it was only to pack a bag. And then he left again, this time for good. The months that followed were a blur. I took a leave of absence from work. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing David, or pretending like everything was normal. Tom filed for divorce almost immediately, and I didn't fight it. I couldn't. I had destroyed our marriage, and there was no way to undo that. I moved out of the house and into a small apartment across town. It was the kind of place where no one knew me, and for the first time in a long while, I preferred it that way. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. We didn't have children, which made the legal process simpler, but emotionally, it was devastating. Our families had known each other for years, and the ripple effects reached far beyond just the two of us. Friends took sides. Others simply disappeared. The loneliness was crushing, but I knew I had brought it on myself. Eventually, I returned to work, but not at the same company. I resigned from David's firm. I couldn't stand the whispers, the looks, the silence. I found a position at a smaller company where no one knew my past. It was a fresh start, at least on the surface. But underneath, the guilt and shame lingered. I buried myself in work to stay distracted, but nothing could change the fact that I had lost the one thing that truly mattered. Over the next few years, I tried to rebuild. I started therapy to understand why I made the choices I did, why I had risked a loving marriage for something so hollow. The affair wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was the culmination of years of poor communication and unmet emotional needs. I had never truly opened up to Tom, never worked with him to fix what was broken between us. Instead, I ran into someone else's arms. Meanwhile, Tom moved on. Through mutual friends, I learned that about a year after our divorce, he started dating again. Eventually, he met someone serious. Her name was Emily. She was everything I wasn't: kind, grounded, and sincere. I heard they were happy together. A part of me was relieved. He deserved that. He deserved someone who would never betray him. 3 years after the divorce, I saw Tom for the first time at a mutual friend's wedding. We exchanged polite greetings, but the distance between us was obvious. I could still see the pain in his eyes. And in that moment, all the guilt I had tried to bury came flooding back. I didn't know if he would ever forgive me. I wasn't sure if I would ever forgive myself. Therapy continued. I joined a support group for people affected by infidelity, not just the ones who were cheated on, but those who had been unfaithful, too. Hearing others share their stories was humbling. It helped me understand that I wasn't alone, and that healing required brutal honesty with oneself. The affair didn't just hurt Tom. It broke me, too. It warped how I saw myself, my worth, my values. Facing that truth was painful, but necessary. By the 5th year after the divorce, I began to find peace. I started a small business with a friend for my new job, something I had always dreamed of, but never had the courage to pursue. It wasn't a replacement for the life I had lost, but it was something new, something real. and that mattered. Around that time, I saw on social media that Tom and Emily had gotten engaged. Their photos showed a joy I couldn't fake. I felt a mix of emotions, happiness for him, yes, but also a deep ache. That could have been my life. If only I had been stronger, more honest, less selfish. 8 years have passed since the night everything changed. Tom and Emily are now married. They recently welcomed their first child. When I heard the news, I sent a card. Simple, sincere. I wasn't expecting a response. But a few weeks later, Tom reached out. He thanked me for the card and asked if I'd be open to meeting for coffee. Not to rekindle anything, he was clear about that, but for closure. We met at a quiet cafe. It was strange, like seeing someone you once knew intimately but who now feels like a stranger. We talked about our lives, our journeys, how we had changed. Tom told me something that stayed with me. While he had been deeply hurt by the betrayal, he eventually came to realize that both of us had contributed to the downfall of our marriage. He regretted not being more emotionally present, not recognizing the cracks that had formed, not acting sooner. It didn't make my choices right, but hearing that helped. For the first time, I didn't feel like the sole villain in our story. Tom said he had forgiven me, not for me, but for himself. He said carrying resentment had become a burden, and that to truly embrace his new life, he had to let go of the pain from the old one. We didn't hug. We didn't linger. We simply parted with an unspoken understanding that we had shared something once, and it was over. But it had mattered. Today, I continue to run my business. It's thriving in ways I never imagined. I've started dating again, slowly, carefully. I know now what I want in a partner, what I need, and what I won't settle for. I've learned that happiness doesn't come from excitement or escape, but from quiet consistency, from showing up, from doing the work. The affair remains the biggest mistake of my life, but it taught me more about myself than anything else ever has. I'm not the same woman I was 8 years ago, and for that I'm thankful. I've learned how to be honest, not just with others, but with myself. I've faced my flaws. I've grown. The past can't be changed. But with time, the weight of it becomes easier to carry. I lost my marriage, but in the wreckage, I found something else. I found myself. And sometimes that's the most painful, yet most powerful, discovery of all.